Now, did you get those notes on Telegram? The Telegram group. What all are remaining? Unit 2 only. Unit 2 is remaining, or on Telegram they have not sent anything else. यार. How many people are there in the Telegram group? 17. Thirteen. Are there people outside this Telegram group also? Huh? You don't know. Of course, you can't see, but there might be people outside from here also. All of you have heard about him, Kautilya. Who was he? Teacher. Then Brahmin scholar. He was a Brahmin. In Nana's court, he was there first. Then he helped overthrow Chandragupta Maurya. Correct. And what scholar was he in the Nana's court? Brahmin scholar. Nanda was Brahmins. Yeah. I guess Nandas were also Brahmins, and the ones who overthrew them, Pushyamitra Sunga, they were also Brahmins. So Mauryas, I mean, went right at the top of the caste system and established the empire. Correct. What do we study in Indian administration? Do we study the life history of Kautilya, or what? His words, works. What kind of work? क्या सिखाया? What was the name of his book? Don't know. Arthashastra. So, Kautilya, there was a time when Alexander was in the present day Western Punjab, Pakistan. Alexander was through that hadn't crossed Indus yet. Hmm. Troops were there. So the first time they heard about while fighting against in Persia, the first time they heard about Indian elephants in warfare. Alexander's, and he was from that tiny principality called Macedonia. There he started with the soldiers of that region and conquered a large piece of Asia. Now, when Alexander was there, he was thinking whether to go into India or not. During that time, Chandragupta Maurya was very young. Now, there is a story. I mean, we don't know whether the story is true or not. So for the first time, this was probably in a region where Alexander's few of the troops you send first to see the area, to map the area. Few of the troops were mapping the area in terms of just roaming around in the regions, that what all is there. Is it actually worth invading or is it just forest? Now, in the probably in a particular, so this is a story. We don't know the historical basis of this. In a road while Alexander's troops were moving, few troops were there to search and map the region. When they were searching things, they were asking. So Chandragupta Maurya was very small back then, very as a kid, and and that time Chanakya was teaching him. Kautilya, he was teaching him. There was deep sense of nationalism in him at that time. Not nationalism, but patriotism. So Alexander's troops asked him if they want to go to a particular place, which road is that? Okay. There are two roads diverging. So Chandragupta Maurya told those troops to go into a different direction as compared to the right one. And so they went into the jungle side, faced some difficulties, whatever. So basically, with this story, I mean, I don't remember exactly where I read it. With this story, it shows two things. First, the idea of India was there back then also. We say there was no India before the British. The British fighting against the British uh, and the national movement created the idea of India. But this story symbolizes the idea of India was somewhat there even before uh, more than 2400 years ago, 2300 years ago. This idea of India was there. That is why probably a young kid from a very small kingdom of Magadha at that time would mislead Greek soldiers to go somewhere else. And inside him, there was that desire to become that huge emperor that Alexander was. Now, I don't know whether the timeline actually fits or not of this story, whether this story is true or not, but this is a saying that goes on. Basically, Chandragupta Maurya was so after Chandragupta Maurya, there will be a lot of people who will come in. Bimbisara will come in, Ajatashatru will come in. They are the ones who will build the first pan-Indian empire. Not exactly from one front to other front that present geographical location is, but a huge empire where the idea of a nation will emerge or a people will emerge, which will go on to be crystallized under Ashoka. So, and these were early conquerors who will create states and nations out of nowhere, out of mere jungles, villages, etc. They'll create states out of it. So, what that is the reason we study this is that this is a source written during that time when this early state formation was happening. that first time there was administration at a large scale forming, which had a lot of population under its control. There were first time, so you must have studied in that chapter of Mahajanapadas, first time there were standing armies. Previous to that, what were there? Peasants used to fight during war times. There were no well-trained standing armies whose salaries were paid. Yes. So this was the time when this early state formation started happening. This early state formation led to development of complex administrative structures, development of an economic system, and first time government or the state started making policies and started trying to implement them. What we consider today as very much of a given, as a very obvious thing, 2300 years ago, or 2500 years ago, these were starting for the first time. Because why? Agricultural surplus was there in these regions. People had time to do other things rather than subsistence. So during this time, this state formation happened, and Kautilya started writing that how what should be the state like, what should be the administration like, what would be the monarch, okay, who's the king at that time, how should that person be like? Because monarch is just not just a name, it's an institution in itself. What that institution should do and not do, how that institution should think, how that institution should frame something. In this particular setup, Kautilya is writing and shaping the moral, ethical, economical, political underpinnings of that society, of that administrative system. That what should be the behavior of the king? What should be the economic policy of the state, and who should it serve? Should it serve the king? Should it serve the army? Or should it serve the people? Yes. Because even today, there will be different countries whose policies, government policies, they don't necessarily serve the people, even if there is a democracy. They might serve the army. So for example, in Pakistan, presently since the last 50 years, the army has a significant stronghold on the civilian administration. Yes? So whatever state policies are there, those state policies are influenced significantly by the military. Yes? Imran Khan, as the prime minister, wanted to change this, but army pushed back, jailed the person, etc. So a lot of problems are there in that country. So it shows it is not very obvious that state will make policies for the welfare of people. Yes. Now, if a treatise that is 2300, 2400 years old, that is talking about that state's policy should be oriented towards the welfare of people, it shows that this idea of welfare state did not start with the beginning of our study of public administration or in the 1950s. It started way back 2500 years ago. That welfare should be the orientation of the state. State responsibility is the welfare and upliftment of people. Its responsibility is to make the population prosperous in nature. Understood? That is why it is required. Now, Kautilya's Arthashastra. This book is basically a treatise on statecraft. It's a treatise on statecraft. Why? What exactly is statecraft? That how state should be organized, economy should be organized. There were PSUs at that time, present day PSU idea that were there at that time, that whatever private industry can't do, government will do. Yes. So these were the ideas. That is the reason we still study it. So this initial phase of 10 minutes discussion that I did is actually a generic understanding that why today this is relevant. So question might be directly asked you in a 10 marker that why are we studying this today? Because first you understand this discussion, then you see what is written here and apply that to present date circumstances. Yes. But why today welfare state looks like is based on similar moral philosophy that it was based on 2500 years ago. When we say, if you have seen the cabinet ministers or the prime minister take oath before they get into office. So in that oath, they take oath that they'll take care of the country. They'll put country before themselves. Okay? They'll take care of the integrity and the unity of the country. Bharat ki akhandata or prabhuta, the term used. So that means these are the moral philosophy that still guides Indian administration and Indian political setup. These are the systems that guided the national movement also. Okay, and presently there are a lot of ideas that we'll study today will be very much relevant to the way uh, will be relevant in terms of applying into today's scenario. This application part you will have to do it yourself when the question comes, but this understanding is very much required. Okay? So what is the core philosophy? What does artha means? Artha means material well-being. Okay? That uh, material well-being, wealth and power, anything that gives strength. Wealth can be a source of strength. Material, a lot of money can be in terms of material wealth, in terms of a lot of natural resources. These are material wealth. Yes, this can be a source of strength. Power, for example, coercive power. If you have lead army, that can be a source of strength. So artha means refers to material well-being, wealth and power. So this means what actually has a value in that time of a society. That means artha. Kautilya's primary focus was on creating a strong, prosperous state as the instrument of human advancement. So, the problem that Kautilya wanted to solve was the problem created by the Nanda administration. Dhanananda, Dhanananda was son of Mahapadmananda, I believe, or grandson of Mahapadma. Under Dhanananda, administration was very corrupt in nature, and the emperor was very power hungry, wanted to use all the power for himself. So to solve all of these things, Kautilya wanted to create a state that outlives himself, and of course he created it that outlived himself. So artha. First, we'll understand what all philosophies are being discussed here. Okay? Welfare state. Welfare state, it's known as something as Yogakshema. Yogakshema. Here, Kautilya will say the state or the king, there is a quote that he'll say. The king or the state should focus not on the prosperity of itself. Its first focus is the prosperity of people. If people are happy and prosperous, that means state is prosperous. If people are suffering, that means state will not be in a good state. So the role of state is to make people prosperous. Okay, how to make it prosperous? You use the power of the state to create advancement for people. That is Yogakshema. Yogakshema means the role of the state is to promote welfare in the society. Yes. So this is a quote say praja sukhe sukham राज्यः प्रजानां च हितं नत्म प्रियं हितं राजनः prajanam cha hita prina. That means the welfare of the people lies, or welfare of the king lies in the welfare of the people. The happiness of the king depends on the happiness of his subjects, and in their welfare lies his welfare. He should not consider as, so for example, what is good, what one should do, what is good. It should not be good for himself. It should be the good for the state. Okay? So if I say that you should work or do something which is ethical in nature, the ethical should not be according to you. It should be what is good for people. Okay. He next gives an idea of 7 limbs of the state. Saptanga, Saptanga 3 theory. So in Sanskrit, limbs are called anga. Yes. In a regional languages also it's called anga. There are 7 anga. One is Swamin. Basically, this is the king, central authority who is there. Okay. So this is an institution. So king is an institution in himself. King is the law-making power. He's the ultimate judiciary also. Yes. For example, we understood this under a prismatic society, right? One institution doing a lot of functions. Yes. So law-making functions are there, power of the court. That means judicial functions are also there. And there are administrative functions, means acting as an executive. So there are executive functions that Swamin did. Next comes Amatyas. Amatyas are basically, they are senior level ministers or the bureaucrats at that time. Okay? So they had administrative and ministerial powers. They were there to advise the king, frame some kinds of policies, oversee the administrative activities and implementations of whatever law that the king is making. You can see at that time, this was the mature thought that they had, that king should be an institution who should create it, and there should be different ministers and top level secretary kind of a thing to oversee the implementation. Avantyas. Then comes Janapada. For example, Saptanga means what creates a state. What are these elements or essential elements that creates a state? First is king, then there is group of people who help the king run the administration. Yes. Then what do you need? You need territory and people. Territory and its people, Janapada. Janapada means where the people actually live. So it includes 2 things: geographical territory and people living within it. Janapada. Then comes Durga. Durga means a fortified capital. Why you need a fortified capital? For defense, so that nobody comes and invades you. So fortified capital means Durga. Then the next important for a state is called Kosha. Kosha means treasury. Treasury or money. So the line that Kautilya will use in defining this is something called Kosha Mula Danda. That means treasury is the root of power. Okay. So treasury is the root of power. This means that the power actually lies in the strength of the treasury. If the country is rich, that means that country is powerful. If the country is poor, or the financial health is poor, that means the country is very weak from inside. So it can have a huge standing army, but if it does not have money, then that country is poor. So Kosha Mula Danda. So this is what Kautilya is saying. That is why prosperity of people is important, because prosperous people will make sure the state is prosperous. And if the prosperous state is there, that means state is powerful. Okay? So kosha, mula, danda. Then comes bala or danda. The term here, that means the army or coercive power. Coerce uh, and make sure things are happening, things are taking place. Then comes mitra. Mitra is friends around you. That mitra should be very, what do you say? Mitra help you during tough times, right? If you are going to war, a friendly, what do you say? Friendly kingdom might come and help you. Similarly, as a country, we have seen that is why we make friends around the world. Whenever there is problem, they come to help India. For example, we have a very good friend in Russia, for example. So whenever there are times are tough, Russia stands with India. So that is why all of these things are very relevant even today. Saptanga theory. Dandaniti, the science of law and order. Kautilya advocated for the firm use of authority to prevent Matsya Nyaya. I'll explain. Thereby ensuring justice and social order. Now, this Dandaniti ensures something called rule of law. First, understand what Matsya Nyaya means. Matsya Nyaya means that uh, you must have seen in a society where there is not a good law and order, okay, or in a during a time when there was no state per se. That means whoever is powerful is able to get the resources they want, okay? Because there is no police, no state, nothing to complain. So Matsya Nyaya means that biggest fish in the pond will eat small fishes, and small fishes have no chance to go out. Okay, that is Matsya Nyaya. So what is the law there? The strength of the fish. Okay? The size and strength of the fish determines what law is. There is no other law. Whoever is powerful eats the smaller thing. Okay? That is also Matsya Nyaya. Now tell me something. If question comes that why, what all elements are still relevant today? Why is Matsya Nyaya still relevant today? Hmm? Caste system. Somewhat, but what else? But think on international terms, or think on trade terms. Hmm. Yes. Or we can say, for example, stronger countries, okay? US invading countries like Vietnam, Iraq, etc. It also shows Matsya Nyaya. Yes? There is no international law you are following. Because you are powerful, you are doing that. Similarly, uh, other things such as the US bullying small countries into favorable trade terms for itself. Okay, that is also an example of Matsya Nyaya. You just make a note of these examples under this so that I can include it. बना रहे हो? So, in terms of Matsya, you write. Don't write that war thing. Write that favorable US bullying small countries into favorable trade deals. Or you can also write how another example you can write is how US influences policies in the banana republics of Latin America. So Kautilya says to ensure rule of law, what the state does is state uses the coercive power it has. Okay? State uses dandaniti, state uses the authority or dand to prevent Matsya. How to ensure rule of law? First, law has to be established at top. How does it get established at the top? Through the power of the state. Yes. So, for example, if court gives a judgment, how is that judgment enforced? Police is sent if that is not enforced. That means coercive power is very much required for law to prevail. Yes. But that coercive power should only be with the state. That is why it is said state has a monopoly over violence. Yes, that term is used. So, Dandaniti, you understand? So, Dandaniti, what state is preventing the society going into Matsya. That is a state of nature where there is no law and order that exists. Now, king, the Swamin, he was the chief executive, and the king was the pivot of the administration. Everything centralized towards him. It was like this, a very Weberian structure was there at that time. King is at the top, and here are the Amatyas. He was expected to be energetic, vigilant, and accessible in nature. Okay? He was assisted by a Mantri Parishad or Council of Ministers, as we say it. So this is also reflected in the present government system of India. The way Council of Ministers and the President work together. The President is assisted by the Council of Ministers. 75(3) clause. I guess. Departmentalization and specialization. The administration was divided into 34 departments. That means 34 different ministries were there, each headed by a superintendent, adhyaksha. This shows a high degree of functional specialization. So it is like a prismatic society. Some institutions are doing multiple jobs, but there are functionally it is specialized in nature, in theory. It is diffracted in terms of the arrangement, but functionally, you see, in reality, there would be a lot of institution doing multiple things, right? So, in on paper, it is diffracted. So, prismatic society was that, right? On paper, it was diffracted, but it was functioning like a old age society. They showed high degree of functional specialization. Key department included revenue and finance, Samahartha and Sanidatta, agriculture and irrigation, trade and commerce, mines and metals, justice and law. Then there was espionage system of that time. That how to the raw or IB of that time, that how the government, or how the top level of the administration will get information of whatever is going on. So you have a espionage system. Espionage system was very much important to see whether there is some movement of troops happening in the neighboring territory. Yeah? What exactly are people thinking right now about the king? Yes. So this ensures that eyes and ears are there on the ground. And that is very much important. This was basically a information system. Okay, we'll do it in more detail in the following pages. So Gyudha Purusha was used for intelligence gathering, surveillance of officials, and monitoring public opinion. Okay, what is the public thinking? This reflects an emphasis on information based administration. So information is needed, and according to that, it is affecting policy making. So if people are not very happy with the water management system of the state, right? So state will try to implement water management systems, things like that. Fiscal and revenue administration. The state had a robust system of public finance. There were sources of revenue, different sources of revenue were there. Land tax was there, trade, mines, forests, etc., etc. So agriculture was considered the most important economic activity, because during that time when Mahajanapada started, agriculture started taking place, because that is also called the Iron Age. Iron plow was used to plow the tough land of the Ganga Valley. And then uh, emerged empires out of there. So agriculture was important. Accountability. The Arthashastra details principles of budgeting, auditing, and fiscal discipline. Kautilya famously lists 40 different forms of corruption, highlighting an early focus on administrative ethics. So there are 40 different uh, uh, Arthashastra, when it comes to accountability, there are 40 different types of corruptions. Okay? Law and justice, Vyavahara. The king was fountain of justice and was assisted by some judges called dharmasthas. The legal system emphasized the rule of law, proportional deterrence-based punishment system. Okay? So, Vyavahara. So the king was also supposed to be the pinnacle of justice. So the king's behavior should also be like that. Okay, so he should be an example for people. Saptanga theory, this is done. So now let's see in detail how those revenue administration or administrative system used to function. Now everything was very much centralized. Centralized administration means this structure, Weberian structure was there. Yeah, centralized bureaucracy, a vast hierarchical and specialized bureaucracy was the hallmark of that time. And this is all what Weber is trying to make. King, the Swamin was the pivot assisted by the Mantri Parishad. Personal administration, that means the Amatyas. Kautilya provided a detailed framework for merit-based civil services. This is what Woodrow Wilson also wanted to do. take away from the spoil system and start with merit-based civil services. So that means there is an exam through which recruitment of civil services are to happen. So you can see how much mature of the administrative system at that time was. That whoever there would be certain tests for to be a part of administration. So the test would check your ethics, would check certain knowledge of you. Okay? So that means if somebody is not very ethical in nature, if you put that person in the treasury department, a lot of problems might happen. Yes. Similarly, if somebody who is very much flimsy, his attention span is not very good, you can't put that person in espionage. Right? So that means you have to find out qualities of people to put them into right areas at the right time. Personnel administration. Recruitment. Officials were to be appointed based on qualifications and were subjected to tests of character and integrity known as Upadha Pariksha. Okay? Upadha Pariksha. So you have to sometimes use these keywords, okay, in exams. So mostly these questions are asked as 10 marks. So your aim is to score at least a 6 out of it. Pay and promotion. Arthashastra describes a system of graded pay scales and emphasizes that salaries should be sufficient to prevent officials from resorting to corruption. Now, this particular point, it is still relevant. If you pay public servants less salaries, so they'll start finding ways to earn more. It leads to corruption, okay? Greasing of the palm. So if the salary of everyday constables and day-to-day police officers are very less, traffic police is very less. So you have created conditions around them. Their survival is very tough. Survival of the family is very tough. That is why they'll start resorting to corruption. To solve this, Kautilya says they should be highly paid officials. You pay them very highly so that money does not test their integrity. Yes, code of conduct should be there. Strict rules govern the conduct of officials, and a powerful espionage system monitored them for loyalty and efficiency. Now, there are certain strict rules you have made for the administrators. How do you know whether they are working correctly or not? Your spies go around seeing that who is loyal, who is not loyal, who is not following the orders of the king, etc. etc. So spy network is very much important. Understood? Then comes financial administration. In financial administration, we have seen there is something called Samahartha. Samahartha is the collector general responsible for assessment and collection of all revenue and for preparing the annual budget. So presently, the revenue secretary of the government is like the Samahartha. That means all kind of GST collection, all kind of tax collection, that person sees and sees that okay, this much amount of revenue we are earning today, earning this year. For example, this year's earning is equal to 100,000 crores. Okay? So, and this much amount we can spend, this much amount loans we might have, etc. etc. This is the treasurer general responsible for the custody of the state treasury, stores, and granaries. Who is the present day Sannidata? The treasurer general responsible for custody of the state's treasury. CAG, yes. Controller and Auditor General. Good. Control on corruption identifies 40 ways of embezzlement, 40 different ways to do corruption, and prescribes severe punishment, highlighting a sophisticated understanding of ethics and accountability. Then there are judicial systems as well. Dharmasthya Court, it's called. These are civil courts dealing with disputes related to marriage, property, inheritance, contracts. So trade disputes, etc., goes to Dharmasthya courts. Okay. Kantaka Shodhana courts, that means these are criminal courts. So present day division of judiciary is also on the basis of this. Whatever you find here, you just write those keywords and just write where present day administration also has all of these things. Okay? This will fetch more marks. Kantaka Shodhana. So Kantaka is usually in Sanskrit, it's the name for a thorn, Kanta. It's called in Hindi, na? Kantaka Shodhana. That means the job of this court is to remove those thorns from society, okay, who are preventing rule of law and law and order to take place. Understood? Now, the important thing about paper 2 is your job is to find out certain scholars of a particular topic, okay, and see what all those scholars have said about a particular thing. And you start dropping their names. For example, Al-Basham is a huge historian in terms of the ancient India. He talks about, has written a lot about ancient India. His book is a wonder that was India. Okay, Al-Basham. He wrote about large empires around the world. Wrote about Greece. He wrote about Rome, and he wrote about India. 3 parts he wrote. Al-Basham. Al-Basham noted that the Mauryan state, as described by Kautilya, was a remarkable blend of paternalistic welfare and a machine-like system of control and regulation. Paternalistic welfare because the king acted as a father, okay, and father does good for his children. Okay, what is the role of a father? That he does a lot of things throughout his life to improve the lives of the children. Right? So that is why the king should be like a father, and the subject should be the king should treat the subjects like his children. Okay? So their job is to take care of them, protect them, feed them, make them more prosperous. Okay? Just like the role of a father. So this is what Kautilya says, that king's role should be like a father. So Mauryan administration under Ashoka it shifted. Okay. More and more provinces were under Ashoka as compared to Chandragupta Maurya at that time. Now, these are not exactly written in your syllabus, but you must know just to see how evolution has happened. Okay? Provincial administration. So provincial structure was strengthened. Okay, a lot of districts and states were created, and there are a lot of governors who were appointed in these provinces. The subdivisions were further divided into janapadas and finally into villages. So, for example, there is a province or a district. It was further divided into aharas or vishyas, that means subdivisions. So, for example, in a district, there would be 4 subdivisions. Within that, there must be uh, janapadas, okay? Further divided into janapadas. And these janapadas are like blocks. Then these janapadas are divided according to the villages that there. So, see, philanthropic spirit. We see that Ashoka, once he took up Buddhism, he wanted to use all his power to uplift people and help people. Okay? And he appointed some reporters called Pativedikas. Pativedikas were reporters whose sole duty was to report to him about public affairs and grievances at any time, ensuring he remained connected with the people. So, what the Mauryan administration was using under what do you say, Chandragupta Maurya, they were using the espionage system for this. He made a kind of a media type of a thing that talks about public grievances directly to the emperor. Okay? This shows the evolution from a very coercive militaristic structure to a more civilian structure under Ashoka. There will be other officials, welfare officials called Mahamattas. So Mahamattas, their duty were specific in nature. There were Dharma Mahamattas to look after the material and spiritual well-being of people. Okay? Dharma, righteous conduct. Adhyaksha Mahamattas, they looked after the welfare of women. Okay? Adhyaksha Mahamattas. So, gender specific administration was there at that time. You can give these examples. There is something called Anta Mahamattas, responsible for the general administration of frontier provinces. So, if in India, these were regions, or these were regions which were very frontiers at that time. Ashoka's empire was not till all of the south. These were also frontier provinces. These were also frontier provinces. So these frontier provinces have at times challenges, right? So uh, Anta Mahamattas took care of that. Nagara Mahamattas, they were in charge of cities and towns, the general municipal administration. Now comes legal reforms. Ashoka introduced legal reforms such as Danda Samahara and Vyavahara Samahara, like uniformity in criminal and civil procedure. Okay, so if, present day we have something like the Criminal Procedure Code, Civil Procedure Code, Indian Evidence Act. We have presently we have things such as Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita. There is Bharatiya Sakhya Adhiniyam. So these things are there. Okay, which are criminal code, and CPC is still the same, civil procedure code. So they wanted to do this. Now, the system of Maurya, the Mauryan administrative system, was very much sophisticated in nature. And to give a case study or an example, we see when it comes to urban management, I have added this so we can give examples under uh, local administration, yeah, urban local bodies or rural local bodies. You can give these examples. The city of Patliputra was managed by a municipal commission of 30 members, yes, which was further divided into 6 boards of 5 members each. That means high degree of functional specialization was there. One, there was industrial arts, supervised artisans, fixed wages, and ensured the quality of manufactured goods. So they said that okay, uh, in this particular regions, all the artisans are there. So minimum wages should be there who are working. Okay, minimum quality of product should be maintained so that the state can think about exports or trade outside the country. Yes. So for that they have to maintain some level of quality. Okay. The second board that looked into different things. There are 6 boards looked after the welfare of foreigners, assigned them lodging, provided escorts. This highlighted the cosmopolitan nature of the capital. Okay. Registration of birth and death. That means very much important for taxation purposes. How many people are living presently? How many people are living here? How many people are shifting? Why they are shifting? Trade and commerce, regulated market, weights, measures, issued licenses to foreign merchants or domestic merchants. So this created a standardized system of market taking care of things. Okay? And there are manufactured articles, supervise the sale of manufactured goods and prevented adulteration. So there would be spies, those Gudha Purusha, who go and check randomly which shopkeeper is mixing something, giving fake products to people. So then these things ensured that people got good prices. There was no Matsanaya. There was nobody who was playing fraud on them. Okay. Tax collection. Collected a tax of 1/10 at the price of articles sold. Evasion of this tax was punishable by death. Okay. So tax collection was of course an important thing. So municipality collected so many or did so many functions, different functions. So within this spy function, Kautilya writes that there are certain specialized spies that were there. Samstha or the stationary spies posed as as aesthetics or ascetics, sorry, the one who do those mantras, babas and gurus, ascetics. Okay? Householders, merchants, and were stationed in one place. For example, one shopkeeper is a spy, but he's a shopkeeper, does the work of a shopkeeper. Okay? Similarly, there would be a priest who will be a spy. Sanchara, wandering spies. They move from place to place. They are basically whatever these stationary spies have information. These mobile or wandering spies will collect those information and take to other places. These spies. Spies were used to monitor the conduct of higher officials, we have seen, including ministers and judges, gauge public opinion, collect intelligence on enemy states, test the integrity of officials through entrapment. That means upadha pariksha, that whether that person is of integrity or not. Yes. For example, if a police officer is corrupt, how do you expose that person? A spy would go and do a mistake and would want to get away from that mistake by paying that person. It shows if that person is taking money, that means there is a lack of integrity in that person. So such tests were conducted, real life tests were conducted. State was a major economic actor at that time. How so? State held monopolies over key sectors like mining, salt production, arms production. So within a state or within a kingdom, state has to have a monopoly over coercive power, yes, to prevent Matsanaya. If state, if there is other entities who have guns or who have any kind of arms, that means state is not the only one. There are challenges within the state. That is why state has to make it their monopoly. That state alone will manufacture weapons. Yes, uh, such as salt production or mining iron ore. Okay? So how does state maintain control? By doing things that nobody else does. State-owned lands. There was a superintendent of agriculture at this time, Sitadhyaksha. The state owned large tracts of agricultural land known as Sita lands, which are cultivated under supervision of Sitadhyaksha. Basically, anything that the army needed, that the government needed. So, as a day-to-day affair, these things were cultivated for them, okay? Or it was given out to cultivators, okay, and rent was taken from them. This was a source of revenue for the state. Regulation. Numerous superintendents, adhyakshas, they regulated everything from liquor sales, gambling, to forestry and shipping, creating a highly controlled economy. So it was also a regulatory state, yes, and it was also something of a rowing state. State was doing a lot of jobs. There were a lot of PSUs. State was controlling the prices in the market. Plus, state was also regulating a lot of things. Yes. Saptang theory also shows a systems approach, that everything is working together to make things happen. It's working like a system. Systems theory is there. Mantri Parishad is the present day cabinet, etc. Specialized department is the functionalization or departmentalization within the bureaucracy. Merit based appointment, we have seen meritocracy, Wilson talked about. Surveillance and feedback. So performance evaluation measures, grievance redressals. So this is like CP grounds of today. Yoga Kshema, welfare state, Kosho treasury, these are all very easy. Now let's move on to Mughal administration. You all have understood till here? Okay. Let's take a 5 minutes break. Then we'll take care of Mughal administration. Shall we start? Tomorrow, what we'll do in class is we'll do an exercise that to find out what all topics or issues that are being asked in multiple years. We'll focus on those issues first. We'll clear out those issues. Then we'll go back to and see the syllabus. What else are we missing out of it? Okay? And then we'll do that way. Then we'll have a better grasp over the subject as compared to doing it word by word in the syllabus, because in that way we won't know what exactly questions are asking. Yes. So we'll do that exercise tomorrow. The exercise we did in the very first class. Some of you might not be there back then. So, start. Now we usually shift from Mauryan administration direct to Mughal administration because they represent. So three things we'll discuss today. First is the Mauryan administration, the Mughal administration, then the British administration. Basically, these represents the long-term evolution of how state has evolved in India, and what are these different administrative structures. Because the Guptas that came after the next big empire were Guptas uh, after the Mauryas. So during that time, we see, I mean, after the fall of Magadha, Gupta rose. During that time, there are a lot of continuation of those Mauryan administration. Yes, that is why we take a long jump, because after the Guptas, there is no one large-scale empire in India before the Mughals. The small-scale Delhi Sultanate was there, small regional empires were there, but there was no large-scale empire like the Mughal Empire. Next big thing that came was Mughal Empire, and then it was taken over by the British. Then we study the things in modern India. In Mughal administration, there was a feature of Mughal administration which was known as the Kagazi Raj. That means the paper based government. Everything was done through paper. It was highly centralized, military oriented autocracy that blended Persian Arabic systems with Indian systems. It established a sophisticated rule based framework that was remarkable for its era, often termed as Kagazi Raj due to its meticulous documentation and record keeping. Question might directly come that Mughal administration, that why is Mughal administration known as the Kagazi Raj? Okay. So then you elicited what was the level of documentation and record keeping? What were the effect of this level of meticulousness? Yes. Nature and philosophy of governance. Okay. Military centric autocracy. The administration was fundamentally military in nature. So every official, regardless of their civil duties, was enrolled in the army, held a military rank, and was expected to perform military service. So everybody, that this was the Mansabdari system. Everybody held a military rank. The monarch was absolutely powerful, was the absolute power. So this is shifting from what? Shifting from what Kautilya said. Monarch is not absolutely powerful. He is responsible to the people. Here there is no responsibility. The emperor or the Badshah was the pivot of the entire system. Structurally, it is similar, but there are a lot of other values that Kautilya inscribed in the previous. He was considered the shadow of God on earth. Zil il Lahi was the ultimate authority in all executive, legislative, and judicial matters. Similar role of the state. While he had a council of ministers, he was not constitutionally bounded by their advice. Similar is the role of the king as it was before, but the morality of the king's office changed under this. This was absolute monarchy. Theocratic yet pragmatic. Although the state was based on Islamic traditions, rulers like Akbar transformed into more pragmatic in policies such as Sulh-e-Kul, okay, universal peace and tolerance. Now, what is the administrative system? This Mansabdari system was the steel frame of the Mughal Empire. So, whenever you will study the fall of the Mughal Empire, you will see the failure in the Mansabdari system as one of the problems, one of the reasons for this. Mansabdari system, steel frame of the Mughal Empire. This was created, this was envisioned by Sher Shah Suri, and Akbar perfected it through its policies. Created a single unified hierarchy for both military commanders and civil administrators. Mansabdari system, we'll see this. What is this dual rank that we are talking about? So word Mansab means rank or office. Every official was assigned a Mansab. So somebody has 10, somebody has 100, somebody has 1000, 5000, etc. Zat means there are two ranks. Okay, same person, two ranks. For example, today also, the same person is also the district magistrate, is also the district collector. That means same person holding two offices, different, and also the CEO of the Zilla Parishad, same office, different. For example, the Prime Minister of India, that is one office. There is also another office, that means Chairman of the Niti Aayog. That means that's a different office, but the same person. So here two ranks were there. Similarly, two ranks. A personal rank that determined the official status and prestige in the court hierarchy and personal salary. Okay, so we have something called the grade pay system. It is like that. That means that Zat. So Zat means what is the what is your place in the hierarchy? You might not have that much amount of mansabs, but your Zat might be higher. That means you have lesser responsibility. For example, if your Zat is 10,000 and your mansabs are 1,000, okay, this means you are very high in status. You might be from the royal family, but you don't have a lot of responsibilities. Savar is the second rank. A cavalry rank that specified the number of horsemen a official was required to maintain for the imperial army. For example, if you are from the royal family, you might not have to maintain a lot of savars under you. There would be a lot of you will have mansabs equal to 10,000, but your savars would not be 10,000. This was a flexible system where an officer could be transferred between civil and military posts. Okay? It established a merit based, graded bureaucracy and ensured direct loyalty to the emperor, who could promote or demote officials at will. Okay? That means the emperor was the height of it. Okay? Then comes the Jagirdari system. Jagirdari means how much money you pay to the mansabdars. Okay? What is the salary payment structure? So there might not be direct local currencies paid. Okay? What is paid is in terms of kind. You take this land, any kind of revenue that is being generated through that land, you keep it yourself. Revenue assignment. Instead of cash salaries, most senior officials were granted a jagir, the right to collect the assessed land revenue for a specified territory. This particular system will also be followed by the British in starting from Bengal. This was a temporary assignment, not ownership of the land itself. Yes, and jagirs were frequently transferred to prevent officials from developing local routes. So frequently, you are transferred from this place to that place. Else, if you are kept in a place for a longer period of time, this means you might uh, make it a kingdom of your own. You might fight against the emperor. Now, the crisis of Jagirdari. In the late Mughal period, this system faced a severe crisis. For example, if there are total 100 acres of land that the Mughal Empire has, for example, and there are 100 mansabdars, yes, how do you pay the mansabdars? How do you pay the mansabdars? Through jagirs, na? Now, imagine the number of mansabdars are high, but the amount of land you have is less. Don't you think there is a demand supply gap? Yes. During Akbar until the time of Aurangzeb, what used to happen was the empire was expanding in nature. It was expanding, expanding, expanding. This made enough land available for people who were mansabdars. Eventually, mansabdars, when it started contracting or it became stagnant, there was no expansion. This led to what? There were more mansabdars, but there were no jagirs to give them. This led to a crisis, Jagirdari crisis. In the late Mughal period, this system faced a severe crisis. The number of mansabdars and their salary claims grew larger than the available land for jagirs. This led to intense competition, corruption, and exploitation of peasantry by officials who held only short term assignments. This is considered a major cause of the empire's decline. So, this was an internal problem that led to the decline of the Mughal Empire. This was the fundamental problem that caused this crisis, Jagirdari crisis. Structure of administrative machinery. Uh, Emperor was assigned a core group of ministers who headed specific departments. So functional specialization like the modern empire only. Prime Minister is called Wazir. Okay. Military head was called Mir Bakshi. Their task was what? The modern parallel is like the finance minister or the prime minister. The modern parallel is finance minister. Because the prime minister holds a lot of power and it is with the king. Head of revenue and finance department, he oversaw all fiscal matters of the empire. Then there is military head. It's like the defense secretary. The head of all military establishments. So he was responsible for recruitment, managing the mansabdars, heading the intelligence network, and presenting all officials to the emperor. That means this is a very powerful position of that time. Then there are head of the royal household. Okay, so he was uh, head of imperial household, head of including supplies, protocols, and services in the state workshops. For whatever the royalty needed, it was built within the workshops. Okay? Somebody needed a jewelry. A common jeweler won't make a jewelry for the royal people, right? So workshops, there was a head of this. Okay, royal household. His name was Mir Saman. Then religious affair, Sadr Sudar. So he was a minister of religious affairs. Okay? He saw whether religion is being followed or not, due process of religion is being followed or not. Then there was a chief justice, the Qazi, okay? Qazi ul Quzat, the highest judicial officer in the empire, responsible for appointing provincial Qazis, okay? And ensure that Sharia law is implemented or being followed. Provincial administration. The administration was divided into something called subas and established a system of checks and balances to prevent provincial governors from becoming too powerful in nature. Provincial governor. Who is the provincial governor? His name was Subedar. Okay? He was the head of the province, responsible for executive functions, maintaining law and order, and commanding the provincial army. It was like the district magistrate, the SP, and the governor having all the power of all the district magistrate and SPs. Okay? That was the provincial governor. Then there was Diwan, the revenue head. He was the head of the provincial revenue department. Crucially, he was appointed by the central Diwani Kul and reported directly to him. See, a very important thing here. Diwani Kul, the prime minister. This Diwan, he was not under the Subedar. He, of course, worked under the Subedar, but who did it report directly to? Prime Minister. So, through this Diwan, they controlled all the Subedar and oversaw what functions are they doing. So, you give them decentralized power, but you keep a centralized link to hold them as power. So, this is like the chief minister, and this Diwan is like the present day governor. Governor is the he's appointed by the president of India, and this is the chief minister. He was the head of provincial revenue department. Crucially, he was appointed by the central Diwani Kul and reported directly to him and not the Subedar. He's not reporting to the Subedar. This created a dual authority structure that kept the Subedar's financial power in check. It's like governor, the present day state governors are holding the public purse with themselves. Whatever the Subedar wants, they'll have to take it from the governor. So this made this post of Diwan as very powerful position, even more powerful sometimes as the than the Subedar. How did the local administration look like? Within the Suba, there is a district. This is the Suba, and within the Suba, there is, for example, one district. This district is called Sarkar. This things you will learn also in medieval India. Sarkar, headed by Faujdar, responsible for law and order. Faujdar is like the SP, okay, and Amal Guzar, responsible for revenue assessment and collection. So, who does the job of Amal Guzar today? The revenue assessment and collection. Who does revenue assessment and collection at the district level? How so? Hmm? Tahsildar. So, for example, what does a district collector do? Hmm? Hmm. और हाँ, बट उसका रेवेन्यू फंक्शन क्या है? कलेक्ट क्या करता है? टैक्स कलेक्ट करता है। तो आईआरएस क्या करेगा? Hmm? The district collector does what? Spends the money. Hmm. You're true, but what is this term district collector? What are they collecting? हाँ, revenue, but कहाँ का revenue? District, there, of course, in a district, a revenue is being generated. A lot of revenues are being generated. But from what are they collecting? Land revenue, na? Land revenue. They are collecting land revenue. So this was the post that was created during the British to collect land revenue. This Jagirdari system. So they were given Jagirs, and within that they have to collect land revenue and send it to the crown. Yes. So this system continued. This term district collector continued, but they had in modern India they have much more functions than just collection of land revenue. But this term stuck. Okay? District collector. And what does district magistrate do? Punish. Magisterial power is punishment giving power. पॉलिटी क्लास में ध्यान दिया है तुमने. ठीक है. So district sarkar is then subdivided into, for example, this whole thing is sarkar. Imagine within the sarkar there is a sub district. Okay? It's called a pargan. In modern India, you must have heard certain terms like Santhal Pargan. Okay? During in modern India, while studying modern India, modern history, you've seen that when the first resistance against the British came from these territories, Santhala Parganas. Sub-district, a union of several villages. It was the key unit for revenue administration, managed by officials like the Shikdar and the Amin. Amin आज भी है. In the villages, Amins are there. So this is like a block within a district or a subdivision, and within these subdivisions are villages. The basic administrative unit managed by a headman, that is Mukaddam, and accountant, that is Patwari, who acted as intermediaries between state and the peasants. Mukaddams and Patwaris. This man, Raja Todarmal, Akbar and his finance minister, Raja Todarmal, that is the prime minister of that time, Wazir at that time, instituted a scientific systematic land revenue management system called Zapti system or the Dhasala system. This is the how the revenue administration was during that time. Land was accurately measured using a standardized unit. Standardized unit today are just acres. Classification: land was classified into 4 categories based on continuity of cultivation. Palaj means every year it is cultivated. Paroti means every alternate year it is cultivated. Chachar means every 4-5 years it is cultivated once. And Banjar means it has not been cultivated for more than 5 years. These are 4 levels of land. By seeing this, you fix what rate of tax would be collected on different kinds of land. So rate fixing, the state share, that means 1/3 of the produce, 33% of taxation, was calculated based on the average yield and average price over the period of time, over the years. Over the previous 10 years, this created revenue stability for both the state and the peasant. So if state calculates your land, so in your land, you produce every year 1 lakh rupees. So for the next 10 years, the state will say you will pay 1/3 tax on it, Okay, so since the last 10 years, you have cultivated and generated 1 lakh rupee on an average. So for the next 10 years, you will pay this amount to the state. That means it fixes the things for the state and the peasant. For the next 10 years, everything is fixed. So the peasant would want to increase cultivation so that his share is also higher. Judicial administration. Basis of law. Justice was primarily based on Islamic law, Sharia, supplemented by imperial decrees like the Farmans and local customs. There was no single formally codified law. Okay, so basically, uh, all the state functions were carried out according to this law. Hierarchy. The emperor was the highest court of appeal. Okay, this is the judicial administration we are talking about. Emperors like Akbar and Jahangir were renowned for their commitment for justice, with Jahangir installing a chain of justice for citizens to petition him directly. So, below the emperor was the Qazi ul Quzat. This was the chief judicial officer of the state. Local justice. Most petty civil and criminal cases in villages were resolved by the village panchayat. That means panchayats were back there. Okay? So this is an important role. News reporters. News reporters, Ashoka also had. Okay? Akbar will also have the same thing. They'll call Wakia Navis or news reporters who will go to the people, randomly will roam around the people and send the government reports that this particular territory people have these kind of grievances. Okay, this is like the CP grams of today. Was posted throughout the empire to keep the central government informed of all local happenings. This acted as a vital information and intelligence system. Okay. Audit and inspection to prevent fraud in the military, a system of branding horses. That means a dag system was there, and maintaining descriptive role of soldiers. That means chehra was strictly enforced by the Mir Bakshi department. Who is a soldier? Who is not a soldier? That means a chehra system was defined. That this is the name of the person. He looks like this. There is a particular identification system. Similarly, with horses, for example, somebody might use a straight horse and trade it somewhere else. This must have been done. So for them, dag on horses, there is a particular mark that was made on horses to brand that this is a straight horse. Nobody can touch it. This cannot be traded. Or else, for example, if Pawan is a official of that time, Pawan is assigned 1,000 horses. Pawan says that no war is going to happen, and in the next 10 years, these horses will die. So Pawan will sell 500 of them. Yeah. So if there is dag put on them, wherever those horses go, it is traceable that it has come from Pawan's place. And if he has sold it, Pawan will be caught. Yes. Crucial role of zamindars. Zamindars were intermediaries in the Mughal systems and were key for the stability. Okay? They were not like mansabdars. Mansabdars were what? Appointed by the state. Zamindars were permanent settlers of there, okay, who had a lot of land. They were hereditary local potentates. That means in your villages, you might see there would be a few families who would have a lot of land, a lot of influence in that region. So at a state level or at a regional level, some of these families would be there. So these are zamindars. Zamindars are different from mansabdars, and the Mughal administration always wanted to keep good relations with the zamindars. Zamindars had dual and contradictory roles. They acted as agents of the state. How? They were responsible for collecting land revenue from the peasants in their designated areas, that means zamindari, and remitting it to imperial treasury for which they received a share. So one third tax will be collected. Okay, zamindars helped in collecting this tax, and they were given some particular amount of share, some share out of this total money. Local chieftains. They had their own small armies, forts, and deep-rooted local influence. Okay, they often acted as representatives of local interest against the state. Local chieftains. So, if there was any kind of resistance against this time, these kind of netas of that time, they had some small kind of armies within them. So they fought against the state. Source of instability. While essential for revenue collection, these zamindars were also the primary source of rural rebellion when central authority was weakened. If the central authority is weakened and people are rebelling against the state, who do you think is the permanent uh, leader there? Zamindar is permanent there because mansabdars are shifting. Yes, so zamindars were important for that. A few other things. Learning from Sher Shah Suri, they started this revenue system where things such as patta was there. Today also patta, land pattas are there. These are actually title deed. Who owns this land? Patta. Then kabuliyat is there. There is an agreement that for the next 10 years, I'll pay this much amount. There is a kabuliyat, there is a contract of that form. These things were started. Currency reforms were there. So standardization of currency. Rupaya started, the currency of Rupaya started at that. Infrastructure. Grand Trunk Road was built by Sher Shah Suri from Kandahar to Kolkata. Okay, so such a long road was built. So today also in India and in Pakistan, there is still the Grand Trunk Road, the same road that Sher Shah Suri built. So this has been turned into major national highways, different national highways. So this was why, to make trade accessible. Trade routes were very much important for the empire. Without businesses, there would be no taxes coming. Okay? Information systems you have seen, Wakia Nakes also there. So these were also formulated sometimes during his time, Sher Shah Suri's time. Savani Nigar. This is secret reporter, a confidential agent who reported directly to the emperor on important matters, often acting as a clerk on the Wakian office or the local official. They acted as clerks, okay? But they directly reported to the empire. They were secretive in nature. Harkaras, spies and messenger. Networks of spies were brought verbal. Sorry. A network of spies who brought verbal and written reports, often through a relay system of postal runners. Do you know this system, Harkanas? So, uh, what will happen is, if there is a horse, how long will a horse run? 10 kilometers, 15 kilometers, it will run in one go. Or max to max, 40 kilometers in a day. Plus, horse cannot keep up the pace for a very long time. It will slow down, it will eat some grass, etc. etc. And with that, you need a lot of horse riders. So the sprinting power of a individual, of a human, for short distances is much more than a horse. Because horse for a long distance can run for a longer time and in a faster pace. But for short distances, human runners are very efficient. How so? What used to happen at this time to establish communication networks from this point to this point? For example, this is a 200, 300 meter. Okay. So there will be a runner from each one village to another village. And these things, you have seen relay race in the Olympics. Relay race, there will be one baton they'll be holding, and they'll pass on that baton. And once they pass on, the other person will run. This is how important communication and transported. So, for example, from Lahore to Delhi, if an information system is to come for if something has happened at 10 o'clock, it can reach Delhi at almost 1 or 1:30 by this running system. People run from there from a fast system to pass on this communication. Okay, so This postal runners were appointed, and they used to run through a lot of things. So horse needs a straight road to run through. People can run through small passages. They can go through a, if it is running, if it is raining, there are poodles in the rain. People can run through that. They can run through the forested area, take shortcuts, but horse can only run through straight lines. That is why these runners were kept. For example, you have to come down from the top of the hill to the bottom of the hill. So horse won't run. Horse will walk slowly, but people can run through those downhill things, through the forest, etc., etc. So these postal runners were there, and they were there for fast communication. They were named as, this was called the Harkara system, often a relay system of postal runners. Verbal or written report was also. So verbal report was also passed on. So you can't tell a horse and that horse will tell somebody else. This cannot happen. Only humans should be there. Centralized despotism. Now, questions might directly ask that Mughal administration was a centralized despotism. What would you say? All we have read till now. What will you say? Was it a centralized despotism? Despotism means a despot is a person who does not listen to anybody. Despotic rule. So despotic rule is the opposite of democratic rule, like authoritarian in nature. So Mughal administration was centralized despotism. These are PYQs that are asked. What will you write in this? Jot down certain points. What all points will you write? Take time and think about it. So the question would be: Mughal administration is a centralized despotism. Comment. Was a centralized despotism. Comment. What will you write in this? So when it asking you comment, that means you don't have to agree with it. Okay? So you write yes, it was a centralized despotism, and you write how it was not a centralized despotism. So how is this happening? What was the centralizing features that we studied? Hmm? Mansab does. So first, that hierarchical system is there. Absolute monarchy is there. Then Mansabdari and Jagirdari, of course, dual system that is there. Mansabdars are paid out of Jagiris. That is there. Then distribution of mansabs by the king is that centralized authority. That is one point. Then so king is the ultimate authority, is the absolute authority, and all judicial lawmaking and executive power lies with the king. That was centralized. Then What else? High networks, a lot of things. The reporters were there. What else? What was the official that kept a check on the Subedar? Revenue official. Diwan. Diwan was directly appointed by the Wazir and directly reported to the Wazir. Yes, that kept a check. That ensured centralization is there. Then what are the other centralizing features were there? Uh, Land revenue system, the taxation system was there too. That was centralized in nature. That you have to pay access to them. Then within the Mansabdari system, the military administration was very hierarchical in nature, and uh, all kinds of mansabs that were there, all kinds of mansabs that uh, used to be there. These mansabs were uh, holding a lot of power, right? And they were drawing power from something called whatever power that the king gave them. So the ultimate source of power was the king. And as the higher of mansab you go, your zat increases. Yes, that means your rank increases. Your respect, your hierarchy, rank in the hierarchy increases. Not necessarily that means uh, your what your responsibilities increase. That means your jagirs might not your jagirs will increase. Your savars might not increase. Yes. Now we write a counter perspective on this. Comment it has asked that it was not a centralized despotism. There, what will we write? ठीक है, panchayats is a good point. Panchayats. Second, how is the distribution happening? How is the decentralization happening in the Mughal administration? How is the regions divided in the Mughal administration? Subas, and who heads them? Subedar heads them, right? So Subedar is a decentralized authority there. Even though finance is controlled with the Diwan, Diwan has to give him finances to take care of revenue there, right? So Subedars also enjoyed significant power. Yes. Then Mansabdars are like what? All India service officers. They are moving here and there. But there is another entity that is there that is permanent in nature. Zamindars are there. The power of Zamindars were also there. So this shows, plus there are other authorities. For example, there are religious authorities also, right? So religious authorities, sometimes religious scholars or religious authorities, even though ultimate power is the king, they hold a lot of sway over the king. They'll say Sharia law does not allow it. We won't let you take this. This is like what you are doing is against religion. Yes. So this power is also there. Yes. Then what else will be there? Think. How is this not centralized? I mean, what is that decentralizing feature here? That is not despotic in nature. So king is very much interested through Vakyanavis to know what people actually think. So that is not a very authoritarian element. It shows a welfare element of the king. Yes. So that is a good point. So it will be asked in a 10 marker only. The centralized despotism. Very high chance it will be asked. Every 2-3 years it gets asked. So, not a centralized despotism. Shall we discuss a few more answers? Unit 1, brainstorm and discuss answer, because British administration is too long. It will be very, I don't want to rush into it. Because within British administration, and we have to shift from British administration to the modern constitution, that shift has to be there, and it's a bit of a long process of discussion. That how bureaucracy has evolved from British times to the modern times, we'll also have to understand this. We can't rush into it. I'll dictate you some questions. Let's discuss those questions. Right. First question: New public administration. New public administration was a radical movement. NPA was a radical movement to make public administration more relevant to contemporary issues. Discuss. More relevant to contemporary issues. Discuss. Okay. What all have you written? Hmm. New public administration radical movement.
The difference between traditional public administration and
Hmm.
MBA,
What was traditional public administration?
more rule-based hierarchy.
So where does new public administration come in? What is the problem it is solving? NPA.
Having the lack of values,
Yes, absolutely correct. Lack of value orientation, correct. What else it is solving? What was the backdrop of new public administration? Vietnam War was there. What else? The rise of populism, population. No, there was something else. What was happening during 1960s in America? What movement? Who was the leader? A very famous leader. Civil rights movement. Yes. So racial justice was being demanded, equality between African Americans and whites. And there are a lot of social inequalities that were rising. Social inequalities that were rising. In this backdrop, the new public administration solved a problem, telling that public administration is not very far away from all of these issues of society. Issues of societies are issues of public administration. The responsibility of the public administration is to solve these issues. Okay? So that is the value orientation from where uh, the first point is. Okay? Lack of value. And what exactly it is asking? Movement more relevant to contemporary issues. So it made public administration more human and social centric in nature. Whatever problems in society are there are problems of public administration. So you will write about which movement during this time, which conference. Minnowbrook conference you will write. That during Minnowbrook conference first, the young scholar said that whatever problems are there, we'll solve it. Yes, these are the scope of study of public administration. So this expanded the scope of study of public administration into areas that were only dealt under political science before this one. Okay? So it moved public administration from managerial orientation to more value orientation. Okay? Second, it promoted equity as a value. That uh, the responsibility of the state or the administration is to promote equity and welfare of people. So the job of administration is welfare of people. Yes. So it made it very clear during this time. Then what else happened? What else did new public administration change? Made it responsive to people's needs. So made administration rather than just an executing body, it made administration a responsive body to people's need. It became a problem solver of the society. Yes. So it also diluted in this process this politics administration dichotomy. How so? How did it dilute? Think. What was the administration doing before NPA? It was only implementing. Yes. So it was acting as what? the only implementing wing of the government. That means administration implements. But now they are doing what? Administration also listens to the problem of people, comes out with solutions and policies to the problems of people. Yes, this does away with policy. What else? Wait, public administration, a radical movement. Radical. First, we explain why this is a radical movement. Why it was a radical movement from traditional public administration and move into new value orientation to make public administration more relevant to contemporary issues. Okay, so whatever contemporary issues are there, so public administration will solve it. Okay? Now, uh, next question. Let me see. So now thinking about while thinking the answers of this, you are able to kind of revise whatever you have. Question two: explain the concept of public choice. Explain the concept of public choice. How has it challenged the traditional model of bureaucracy? The traditional model of bureaucracy. he answered investment.